interesting gods all around as Count von Count is going Hades. 9RacingCat set. Oh well. He was having quite interesting conversations on RTS-Sanctuary lately, so he apparently wants to prove that he is good with not just Atlanteans. Brickhead as Thor, that makes sense of course. MiracleMan as Oranos also makes sense. HerroOP Loki. Yeah, that's also fine. Though he also plays Atlanteans. And Adhafang as random. Well, he is one of the best players, especially in team games, so of course not any kind of problem. Yes, MiracleMan and HerroOP wanted to play together because they are both from the countries on the Caucasian mountains. I think one of them is from Georgia and second from Armenia. I'm not entirely sure, but I'm fairly certain they both do have the same time zone from around that region. And Frozen Waves, that's a nice map. And interesting gods, Thor, Oranos, Loki against Hades set Isis. Oh well, that's going to be horrible for the bottom team. This is going to be heavily favoring the lineup with the Norse and such. So definitely curious to see how Count von Count with his teammates are going to be making up for the disadvantage in the civilizations. Definitely going to be a really interesting game. So we are looking at Hunt. We spawned for MiracleMan pretty close by, of course, as we are on a reasonably spawning map. The gold is, of course, quite open. Sometimes you can get a spawn that basically makes you, or rather makes the gold protected right next to the tower or in some kind of good position respective to the tree line, but this is definitely not one of those cases, and he will be quite heavily raided from the bottom. And even though he is in the pocket, still he will be wide open because, of course, there's not any kind of possibility to wall on this map from the outward side of the map. In the meantime, of course, we are looking also at, for example, Brickhead, who has cast Gold Mine as a Thor, which of course makes sense. He's having pretty decent hunt as well, of course, and the Gold Mine is yet again quite widely open in the front, and it's going to be very easy to be raided, potentially, if he finds himself in such a situation, as it's of course not going to be all that sure, because the opponents do not have friendly civilizations all that suited for it. You know, you might be just expecting in the heroic age raiding from the Egyptians with chariot archers. So that might be already a bit too late, as the players might be already on the second gold mines that will be somehow protected, but still, looking how close they are to the ice, that of course will mean that they will be easy to raid. Nonetheless, yeah, this is exactly one of the spawns that is super safe on a map like this. You don't have them all that often. Just basically one of the team at the bottom is having safe gold. Whereas for the opposing team, oh, that's a for an Egyptian, you could be thinking that it's actually unsafe because it's in the front of his base. But this is one of the more safer gold mines on frozen waves, of course, as it's not going to be raidable from the water, from the frozen water, of course, and it's quite close by to the tower. So of course, pretty good possibility for him to wall quite easily at the top and have pretty safe gold for the majority of the early game for Adhafang. He's already quite nicely scouting right on the shoreline, basically of his line of view. You can see this is very nicely played. This is exactly how we should be placing them. That's efficiency right there. He's just basically touching his initial field of view. That's how good guess he actually is having with where he needs to build. The last one, absolutely perfect. So this is exactly how we should be placing obelisks about your base. And moving on, for example, right now into the pocket player Count von Count as Hades. Well, we might be seeing some interesting stuff from him, like faster advance into Mythical Age, but I'll be thinking they will be really engaged in the Classical Age pretty soon, and he will be probably the only one to be having any kind of significant army and will be forced to help his teammates on other side of the map. Just now Temple being dropped at the back for 9RacingCat. This is cleverly played, because of course he needs to protect the gold mine from raiding, as it's wide open. And this is pretty horrible for an Egyptian. So he needs to build buildings around it to basically protect himself, as he's right now moving to finish with the temple, as it seems like that he is in pretty good spot to advance reasonably soon. Yeah, you can see already almost 400. So he definitely wants to advance as soon as possible right about now. After the last villager, definitely didn't have to hurry so much, but it's not like it's making a whole lot of difference right now. But he should definitely be careful about those goats, because we have seen the green dude running around, trying to steal absolutely anything that he could, and find, or he could be also killing, and oh, this is interesting spawn of gold mines. This could actually be a pretty important spot on the map for Nyan, because if he can somehow secure this position, this double gold mine is going to be very hard for his opponents to do anything about it, because of course it would mean that you won't have to move, and that's exactly what Egyptians like to do, not move around. In the meantime, he is of course this walrus moving in here, converting a few animals, polar bear and walrus, right now going for quite unsafe hunt. So he might be actually thinking about gathering the second TC reasonably soon, or maybe some faster heroic, really fast heroic for actually going for the goal. Not exactly sure right now, as we are also looking at, I haven't looked at Count von Kahn's gold. They've been below, or rather between the towers, so that's pretty much okay. It could be assailable, potentially, from about this point, but it's not really going to be easy at all, so I'm fully expecting that those towers should be doing the job, and the gold should be okay. At the bottom, HerroOP is of course moving for Hunt a bit more into the front. This is much safer Hunt than what NyanRacingCat is having on the left, and he's already moving forward with a few Hersirs, Frost Oath Food, and the other one is Sigvad Boar Speaker, one that likes piggies in here, and Classical Age from Count von Kahn through Athena. But since he's Hades, he opted for this option and not for the Pestilence, which in this case I'm thinking that it actually might not be all that bad choice, because they are about to be under pretty heavy pressure very soon, even though probably not all that soon. It's looking interestingly like Heavy Boom from the other side as well, basically looking at the civilizations, not thinking that they can win with just trading and such. Well, let's see about that. But yeah, to finish my thought with the Pestilence, you could be basically using it the same as Ceasefire at the start of the game, stopping basically the player for a minute altogether from building an army, and that would definitely be working quite well for him. But you are exactly seeing the same as me, that we are not going to be seeing all that many Radiant, just a few Hersirs here and there from HerroOP, but otherwise everybody going for second DCs and wanting to take things a bit more safely, which I think is a bit of a mistake on the team at the bottom. Because of course, if they give some extra time, which they are exactly going to give to the Egyptians to go to TC faster heroic, or just normal faster heroic, it seems like for Adhafang, should be going for armory reasonably soon somewhere, but I don't see it yet. This should of course mean even walling in health or other inside his base. This is actually an attempt at strategical walling, trying to make sure that he can basically break the wave of the opponent's army. Really, I'm still thinking that Count von Count, Adhafang and NyanRacingCat will be definitely happy about the so far going progress of the game. In the meantime, Brickhead is already having medium raiders and is going for a bit of fun against Seti with a whole lot of villages, budget and the army of the animals of course, and he's having pretty decent number of units already on the left, so they might be really coming for it a bit more. But still, the second TC, or especially MiracleMan in the pocket, is signaling that he is booming a bit more and not joining into some kind of front triple. There is a bit of fighting with the release from NyanRacingCat, which is actually not a bad choice, because if you have a look at it, he has already killed quite a decent amount of army running with the Pharaoh. Yeah, last hit was kind of inevitable in there, and a bit of help, and the front TC is definitely going to help with the Sentinels from the Hades. But he needs to be careful, because right now he will be forced into defensive, because MiracleMan is joining into the fun, and the Raiders are right now a bit too much for NyanRacingCat to handle. So pretty big problems right now coming for him. In the meantime, on the right side, Adhafang is in a pretty good spot. We have seen a spy on some unit somewhere. I just completely missed it. Yeah. In here, on the Sphinx, so that actually they see where he's going to be raiding. And Forest Fire being invoked on the left, so they are definitely intent on getting rid of the Sentinel. And the second one is also gonna die, because they have both unfortunately spawned right next to the forest line. This is such an unlucky situation right now for Count's team, because of course, once the forest fire reaches the trees at the bottom, he is of course going to die as well. Here you can see just now getting killed. Pretty unlucky indeed. But still, two guys are all very much alive. There are at least a few animals that he could be taking care of. Those were converted animals first, I'm fairly certain about it. As HerroOP is right now through, and we are looking at Count von Count sending some army into the front and trying to help alleviate the pressure on Adhafang. But of course, as we are seeing a lot of Heresiers, the Minotaur wasn't be living for too long. Relic for better archer and whatnot, LOS and range. That's super important to actually take from Hades, of course, as we are looking at Teal with the 2 TCs going for a bit more radiant with Turmas and trying to find what he could be killing, potentially right next to the town center, or maybe even somewhere on the map, as he's already having 2 squads of units trying to find something to kill. Of course, this is not going to be all that easy for him, though they are still in range. So, yeah, the wall could have been built slightly better, as we are looking at Heroic Age right now from Adhafang, who is having a bit of luck as just a troll, wasting resources and population limit. Yeah, 3 population limit wasted, and looking at actually Count's presence, it's almost looking like that Proper will be forced into defensive. He doesn't have any units anywhere else, and with the big doll being built on pretty much an important spot, even through the spy, we could be expecting a pretty strong double right now on the right against HerroOP, and he will be probably forced to be helped by MiracleMan quite soon. On the left, it seems like that NyanRacingCat is going to be switching into a bit more of a classical fighting, but he needs to be careful because, of course, Brickhead at 2 is probably going to be advancing into Heroic at some reasonable time. Exactly. Right now going through Braggy, and that means not any good news for the red player. I'm fairly certain he's going to be needing help pretty soon from his teammates. Let's check the technologies. Oh, nothing interesting. MiracleMan into plow and pickaxe for Nyan. Interesting. At 10 minutes. Be expecting a bit sooner, but of course, right now it's going to be all about him capturing some gold mine, because so far he doesn't have any gold. This is going to be running out in like a few minutes, and then it's just at the very back of basically Blue's base, so that should be basically blue gold, and he needs somehow make a move onto the left side. This is basically his next move, and he somehow needs to capture it. And if Brickhead is going to be playing cleverly, he's going to be paying enough attention to that and should be on top of it. Quite alright, but let's see, maybe he makes a mistake. Or NyanRacingCat makes some good play. 30C coming up for MiracleMan, as he's ready basically with army in his own base. Expecting some shenanigans from Count, and Count is exactly on the correct placement. Oh man, when do we stop in the DC? At the last moment, literally the last moment. And those 3 dudes were basically wasting time for about a minute, I will be thinking, especially combined with right now the walking time back. So that's exactly something that not many players think about, and that's why it's important to even try to disrupt the town center, because once you do, you are wasting a whole lot of time on villages, especially for Atlantean. This is really important. So, not something to underestimate, and we are exactly looking at a pretty tough situation right now in NyanRacingCat's base, even though he's advancing into Heroic and getting some help by the ancestors. And it seems like that it's not going to be enough, as 15 cents have been cast somewhere to the right, basically help his teammate from Adhafang, I'm thinking. Or was it from Nyan? Yeah, it was from Nyan, yeah. Adhafang decides this, and for a moment I thought he was Ra, but he isn't, because this DC is absolutely untenable. With 20 seconds more of flaming weapons, it's going to be very easy for them to defend against it, but he somehow, curiously enough, isn't going for the TC yet. This was weirdly played by Brickhead. He was just fighting literally against a few mercenaries, instead of getting rid of the TC with the flaming weapons. Like, what? But in the meantime, he has at least been able to build a Migdol, right next to a super important gold for him. Flaming weapons are gone, and even though he's having heavy raiders with copper shields, he definitely doesn't have enough to deal with the Migdol and the potential extra units that are just so fast trickling out of this fight. In the meantime, we are also losing, or rather, looking at the fight in Purple's base, as he's right now being cast upon Ancestors, but he has been able to capture, rather cast. How is it called? Flaming weapons, of course, Nidhogg as well, but looking at the amount of priests with extra researches on them, the funeral rites and Hands of the Pharaoh, Nidhogg is just now plummeting to the ground, going to be turned into corpse reasonably soon. And of course, this has also resulted into a stop of the gold gathering, which is super important and exactly the biggest problem right now for HerroOP. There was an attempt by Blue from the left as well, but he is, of course, not having enough army, as Teal is, but you mustn't forget he is also raiding on Teal in his own base, which he doesn't know about at all. He's just now discovering that he's being raided. Those Epicons are doing the damage, whereas On the left, his army has been killed. Kataskopos, one of the last units. And Yellow is in the meantime continuing with the push into the enemy base and going for Migdal Stronghold, so he is definitely in a pretty good spot himself. He don't need a whole lot more extra priests, as he needs to get rid of the fire giants as soon as possible, and could be a bit more raiding from the right side with chariot archers. Could be sending just 2-3, and you will be pretty much safe. Actually, those guys should be going to the right on the gold. They will be much more useful in there. But he first needs to finish with the Migdal, and let's see if he's going to be successful in that. This is going to be pretty close, but he should be. The Pharaoh is hidden. Still the first one, actually. This is still the first Pharaoh. At 40 minutes, still hasn't died. That's pretty nicely played by Adhafang, keeping him alive. But the fire giants will be a bit of a problem. And early, the priests should be coming in, with the TC being second, and they finally are. God damn it. Temple being built exactly for the purposes of that. So that's very nicely played. In the meantime, on the left, we are looking at NyanRacingCat actually pushing through. And right now, Brickhead might actually be quite unhappy about this decision, about fighting basically with his whole army with flaming weapons against a few mercenaries, instead of taking out the TC, because, of course, right now it's not going to be easy for him at all to get back into the game, because NyanRacingCat, even though he's 1 TC down, he's in Egyptian, and once he's in Heroic with at least half decent economy, he's going to be shredding, and he definitely is right now, and especially with the help from Count, who is nicely built Hades at 3 TCs and also sending units to the right. Interestingly enough, he doesn't have any upgrades. I'll be expecting at least medium toxots. Let's check his resources. Not all that great, but he's housed, so they should be coming up. But he should be definitely investing at least into the toxots as an ADs. That's something he needs to do, and he unfortunately isn't. MiracleMan coming for 45 TC to help him into the defense. But yeah, that's not really enough, as Count is going for restoration at a pretty important spot, and this will be pretty hard right now for the opponents to get rid of, because this was a whole extra army basically on top of their opponents, and they are yet again onto the gold. And oh my, with tricky retreating, and oh yeah, this is nice, because these were the units that they didn't deal, and they came back. They are right now blocking the path of all those dwarfies, and oh my, they are right now coming back, because they were hoping they can come back into the gold, but they can't, and they are going to be toast, absolutely all of them. Oh, this is horrible for HerroOP. Oh, this is bad. Right now, a bit of a fight. Fine for them, but still pretty brutal losses, especially with the chariot archers coming in there. And looking at the battle, they have killed at least a few buildings, which is important for them. Enough priests to get rid of fire giants, and they should be moving forward ever so slowly. But yet again, they need to be careful about Green, who is still very nicely present in the games, trying to steal a front TC, and of course right now raiding with a bit of piggies and some Jarls, great Jarls, on the gold of the red player. Red right now needs to be making a move on this gold. This is wide open for him, with 45 TCs coming in, and Count establishing some military buildings right next to the situation. This is really looking quite promising, that they could be stopping Brickhead from getting the gold once they establish themselves, and these double gold mines, this is going to be super important for NyanRacingCat. Like, I can't stress enough how super important it's going to be. In the meantime, we are looking at increasing number of steam Faliambers from MiracleMan, and important palace. Not only is it going to be helping with the defense, with the fire, it's of course going to be supplying units all that faster into the battlefield, as we are looking at heavy destroyers with bronze shields and copper weapons. Whereas for the opposing team, chariot archers without any kind of upgrades at all, and blue is so far without any kind of upgrades as well. He's though through Apollo, into Heroic finally, so that's probably meaning that he's going to be advancing into Hephaestus and getting the cheaper upgrades from Forge of Olympus. That should be probably what's going to result pretty soon, and we are looking at gold yet again, going to be attempted to be raided, but Adhafang needs to be careful about his own gold, because of course this is under pretty serious threat of being raided. NyanRacingCat in the meantime is at 3 TCs, so we are seeing all 3s on Count's team, whereas MiracleMan, Brickhead and HerroOP are 3-4-1. So Brickhead is right now making a pretty good attempt on the T of NyanRacingCat, but he needs a bit more siege, as without those, it's of course not going to be easy to take down. 3,500 hit points overall. I would definitely be liking Masonry. Each for Horus and Helios coming up. And iron shields for Brickhead. He doesn't have masons, right? Yeah, with masons it's about 4,000 plus. So we are looking at portable and ramps actually being used. And total annihilation right now of NyanRacingCat's army. And those great Jarls, oh man. With heavy raiders are already pretty big problem into army. And of course NyanRacingCat is right now going to be having pretty huge problems. But he's at least raiding on the gold on the left and trying to keep Brickhead in check. Because there's still not any kind of trading at the bottom, but there is at the top, as Adhafang is already moving across the map and trying to make his presence count. In the meantime, of course, they are still unaware that Brickhead is right inside their bases, building a wall to basically stop the trade, and is getting rid of everything in there, but with Horus and NyanRacingCat paying attention, finally, he needs to get a bit lucky, and the tornado coming to the bottom. Come on, is it coming? Oh yes, it is. But can he take down both of these buildings? They are having pretty decent upgrades. At least fortified DC. The fort is down. That's at least something. And the DC is not. The DC needs to be finished. And we are already looking at least at the siege towers with the Migdol being built. So they should be getting rid of it reasonably soon. And this forward build is basically going to be stopped right now. Siege tower and just the one who's Carl in there should be a lot faster. So fortified DC should be killed, but also has been killed for NyanRacingCat at the front from green, of course, as he's also moving quite strongly into the left. And we are seeing Rhinos right now used from the set, and that's something he might have learned from Demista in a game that I have streamed a bit earlier. So Brickhead has lost the DC in the front, whereas in the middle and on the right we are looking interesting fight between NyanRacingCat and MiracleMan. But since NyanRacingCat is fighting with Hypaspis against Archive, you can kinda guess how it's gonna go, and he needs a whole lot more extra toxots. He isn't Zeus, he's Hades. He's playing this as Zeus, quite literally. Just now going for art changes. That should have been the first unit that he makes, because they are really, really strong, and they can basically stand their fight. But yeah, let's hope that he's going to be fast enough as he went for Sarissa, as an upgrade for Athena, of course, and then, of course, for some extra Hippicons. He finished some idols from Adhafang as the guys' shades are coming through, and we are looking at NyanRacingCat trying to take the TC for himself, so that we are sure, or rather say that they are sure, that it's going to be not coming into the opponent's hands yet again. But Brickhead is definitely moving forward, as he's of course going to be stealing the TC from their opponents, as this is the front of NyanRacingCat basically. But since on the other side, Adhafang has stolen the front TC from basically HerroOP, it should be basically equal. It's going to be up to the players on each side who is going to be winning faster. Heavy Raiders would be like in Champion Raiders already. Yeah, this is apparently not working for 9. But the elephant is at least disrupting the buildings. And yep, we are seeing that HerroOP is having problems with the lag, and it seems like that his computer is actually not good enough, unfortunately, so he will need to close something, not exactly sure. But he definitely does need to do something. In the meantime, we are looking at pretty important switch on the left side, as the army from Brickhead has been going into the middle to basically fight for the TC and whatever. But that basically gave opportunity to NyanRacingCat to build a Migdol right next to important gold, even though the one at the bottom has just finished. And that means that those dwarves are gonna die and they have nowhere else to go for gold. Just one at the bottom, which is literally gonna be finished, 41 gold left. So yep, this is going to be the last gold mine. And of course, all those dwarfies are gonna die, even though they are going for the Migdol. They shouldn't be really succeeding all that much. But does he have the upgrade? That doesn't seem to be having. Boiling oil, how is it called? So he needs to repair, and he needs to send some units to kill them, because so far he's not killing them at all. Even though it seems pretty easy fight. Yeah, without the upgrade it's not really turning to anything like that. And of course this is going to be pretty tough, as even more villagers are coming in for the gold. Yeah, right now I'm going to be stealing basically from the opponent's hands. But the army is still pretty strong, and he is binding a whole lot of units from Brickhead, which is pretty important to allow count for count. Right now heavy Hypaspists and Aegis Shield That kind of extra upgrade still. To secure the position in the middle and help his teammates as much as he can. On the right side, Adhafang seems to be handling this situation alright, as he's moving to kill as many villagers as he can. On the goal for HerroOP. Of course, these dudes are not going to be all that successful, but pretty decent defensive buildings with the hill forts, the palace. And the battlefield seems to be slightly, ever so slightly moving, ever closer to Yellow's base. But I don't really think it should be all that long lasting, because, yeah, the trade is not really all that much set up for the team at the bottom, whereas for the team at the top, it's working much better and much longer, so I'm kind of favoring them on account of that. Green Sword still not giving up on the DC, of course. Yeah, 9 is basically building this DC for like already at least 2-3 minutes. That of course kinda sucks. And with all those military buildings right next to it, that's of course not going to be letting up at all. And oh well, this is a pretty big fight right now. And everybody is trying to get on the gold, even the teal player. So are we having... This would be so super for locusts. That's such a shame nobody has them. And it would be nice. But there is not any kind of useful gold power left. Vortex from MiracleMan, and if somebody advancing into Mythic, I would definitely be liking it from Count. But he probably doesn't have enough resources at all. He's absolutely strained on gold. And he needs to be starting to trade. He so far is, as he's moving in an interesting way. Basically from his home base into the bottom. Into this DC, or... Yeah, he's going into this DC. So it's going to be important for them to secure this position. So far they're not really doing so. And the 4 TC for MiracleMan and Brickhead basically mean that HerroOP is going to be reduced to just 1 for the rest of the game. And they are so far having the TC advantage, as they have been forced to abandon the attempts and town center in here in the middle of the map. And that might be right now coming into Brickhead's power, if he's careful enough. But he's really moving forward on the left, doing a pretty good job against 9. But of course, he's 4 TCs against 2, and especially looking at the upgrades on his units. Bronze, and iron, and heavy. Both raiders and the infantry. Yeah, that's probably not going to go all that well for NyanRacingCat, and he will need a whole lot more extra help than even his allies are probably hoping for right now. Yep, basically killing the trade right now, even though NyanRacingCat is trying to prevent that, but with chariot archers, he's just gonna be all that successful against that, and that means that the trade is gonna stop. And that might be exactly the moment where the opponents are going to be kind of thinking that the game might be lost for them, because especially looking at MiracleMan coming through the middle of the map, basically around blue. That's kind of funny. Blue is basically camped the path, but he has been able to go through them. He is right now killing a whole lot of economy, and basically also killing Blue's trade route, which yet again is going to be super important, because gold has pretty much ran out of this game, and it's going to be all about who has trade route and who hasn't. In the meantime, Adhafang is going for basically push that he hopes is going to be deciding. He's really, he needs to succeed if he wants to help his teammates fast enough. But it's going to be quite slow going, especially with siege towers and without catapults, because he's still just in heroic age. It's also the reason why it's going so slow for him. And looking at the military upgrades for MiracleMan, Champion, Archive, Bronze Mail, Iron, and Count for Count is right now resigning. Because yet, the game is pretty much lost without the gold and without the trade. And Brickhead on the left was able to annoy them enough and overpower NyanRacingCat in the fight for the gold on the left. That's exactly what decided the fight for him. GG, and very interesting game. There was a pretty strong push on the right, but MiracleMan was able to help enough. And on the left, Brickhead then with the extra TCs, and overall it seemed like better play than Nyan was able to overpower him well enough, especially this stolen TC in the middle. It was this one. Super important, and basically what Yara maybe have decided the game at least. Decided at least. Yep, that was nicely played. And for Count, I think he was playing it too much like Zeus. I think he wasn't really playing Hades, he was playing it a whole lot more like Zeus, and that of course won't work. As a Hades, you need to really produce a whole lot of Toxotes, and then something extra on that, because the Toxotes are a pretty strong classical unit in their own right, even with Zeus and Poseidon. But in Hades, that's another story. And once you have critical mass, that's pretty brutal to get through, even with direct counter units. Yep, that was starting gold mine, and now that's the girl. That's this is exactly how it should be. The gold, the unsafe gold. That's exactly what Frozen Waste is all about. That's why Egyptians are not such a great civilizations on this map, and why you don't take them. So let's check the post game. MiracleMan in the pocket. He wasn't attacked. Nah, I would like a bit more, or rather liked a bit more, how Brickhead played. Even though that blunder next to the TC with the flaming weapons almost was quite costly, as it allowed NyanRacingCat to be in the game for a lot longer. I think if Brickhead actually used it correctly, he could have killed 9 right there. Could have been just steamrolling his opponent very easily. But at least we had a bit longer game and a whole lot more interesting game. Echo from MiracleMan and from Brickhead as well. Good military count from count. Of course, count for count. Yep. But unit skilled, not so great. And as a Hades, you actually should be having a much better ratio of military count unit skill because you should be at the back and shooting at the units and taking the kills. So yeah, this is basically confirming that he wasn't playing it as Hades. Probably not too experienced with this god. HerroOP on the other hand, 75 military count and 198 unit skilled, but he was helped by building fire a lot. Oh, he didn't even have all that many upgrades in the end, but neither was 9. Yeah. Yeah, the spike here from Brickhead was what decided the game basically. Okay, GG.